now recording. So good morning, everybody. Glad to see you again. Lots of stuff happening. So let's just jump right into the meeting and get started. So as usual, we'd like to start with thanking our sponsors, CareFirst Health Plan, Satellite Broadcasters Association, United Way, Valley of the Sun United Way, Khajiit, and Triad Wireless. Again, we're looking for more sponsors and going to be chasing after you people in the very near future. So having said that, moving on to the agenda, excuse me. So we have several new people who are on the call this morning. So I want to give each of them just a minute or two to introduce who they are. And I think some of them you're going to be interested in connecting with in the future. So Paul Keeley, is that how you pronounce your name, Paul? So Paul, looks like you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
yep, there you go.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce my name. Yeah, my name's Paul Keeley. I'm a professor here at the University of Arizona. I specialize in data communications and risk assessment. I'm also the director of our institute here, cybersecurity, and one of my main jobs is to ensure that we obtain our cybersecurity certifications, mainly the Center of Academic Excellence, the CAE, and part of the CAE process is outreach, being able to outreach into the community and teach and try and raise awareness on about cybersecurity. So that's why I'm interested. Bryn Paulette connected me with Steve, said I'd be, might be interested in joining this meeting and sharing, and also maybe learning some ways where we could partake in outreach in the community. So yeah, I'm here to represent the University of Arizona.
So Paul and I have been kind of trying to connect here and didn't get a chance to talk before this meeting, but we'll definitely be doing some follow-up with him in the future here. And Paul, by the way, please feel free to jump in with, this morning, if you have input as we discuss cybersecurity this morning.
Okay, Steve, thanks.
You bet. Let's see, who do we have anybody else who's
Paul,
this morning?
Charge 1,500 from the state, so I sent her the work order from the.
And somebody needs to be muted. Thank you. Okay, anybody else that's new this morning? Going once?
Sir.
Going twice. Ken, we're going to introduce you in just a couple of minutes. John?
Yes.
So
How you doing, sir?
Introduce yourself.
I am John Boutler. I'm a partner and Chief Business Development Officer with Telsite Infrastructure Services. We're local to home based here in Arizona and provide services, telecommunications and utility infrastructure around the US, and we have an office in Canada as well.
So I'm glad we finally got email through to you, John.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to my, you're correct, it was going to my my junk folder, so
yep.
That's where, through Barracuda.
The pain in my existence, trying to get email through to people. Okay, anybody else who's new this morning? Ken, we're going to introduce you in just a minute, so you don't need to introduce yourself right now. So a couple of quick announcements. So again, just a reminder that we generally do kibitzing with colleagues after our meeting is over. So that's basically an informal opportunity for people to hang on, to share information, ask questions, and so forth. We stop our recording and just is really informal. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, it might be 3 people, it might be 10. We just never know, and it doesn't really matter. Anybody who wants to stay on with kibitzing, that would be great. Good morning, Ryan. Glad you made it this morning.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So one important announcement that many of you are probably interested in knowing about is the state broadband director position. And I did speak with Brian Sherman, Chief Innovation Officer and interim state broadband director. He was also Jeff's boss. And so I spoke with him the other day. They do have a job announcement posted. He said they hope to be able to have somebody hired in 30 days. So I'm going to send out that link. And if you know anybody who might be interested in that position, or if you're interested in that position, you'll be able to find the job description and so forth. In the interim, Sandeep is going to kind of be their representative. And so I don't know if he's on, couldn't see this morning if he's online or not. But just wanted to bring you up to date about that because I know you're all interested in knowing what's happening about that position.
Hey, Steve, quick question on that.
Yeah, sure.
I know I saw a job posting that said Vice President for Infrastructure and Broadband Director. So I assume that's the position you're talking about.
That's correct.
So does it have, it sounds like it has some broader responsibilities beyond just being the broadband director, or just a different, bigger title?
Well, if I remember correctly, that actually that was with that was Jeff's. Jeff was a vice president and broadband manager.
Okay, I never really saw that title attached to him, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to send out that link, and it has the job description. You're welcome to obviously to look at it if you're interested, and/or if you know somebody that should be interested and want to forward that link. I'll get that out today. Okay. Any other questions about that?
Hey, Steve, just for a little bit of clarity, I don't know if you discussed it with Brian, but the infrastructure portion of that used to be part of Marissa's responsibility. Marissa Walker, she's now the mobility person. So
Right.
they kind of merged those responsibilities, just for clarity.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else about that before we move on? So next thing is that most of you know that Nicole Umayam is the federal program officer for Arizona with the office with NTIA, Office of Internet Connectivity and Growth. And so she is back. She was with the state library, as most of you know, and she's now has this new position. And so I spoke with Nicole the other day. We're going to be having more conversations about collaboration with her. In the meantime, I have added her now as providing a regular update about what's happening in the work she's doing and so forth. She will not be here today, unfortunately, because she's apparently on her way up north for an event up north. But she is very interested in being providing a regular update to our meeting and be a regular participate in the task force when she can. So any questions about any of that before we move on? I know there's some other announcements and things, and we'll get to those later, but I want to make sure that we have plenty of time this morning for our presentations and discussion this morning. As many of you know, that we've had several preliminary discussions about the need to address the issue of cybersecurity, particularly as we move ahead with getting people connected, providing internet, providing devices and so forth. But we haven't really spent a whole lot of time figuring out, and the feds are just beginning to provide some funding. And we'll hear a little bit from Ryan Murray in just a couple of minutes. But we have to figure out how we're going to address that issue. So I've been fortunate to find a couple of people that are very engaged, and they're going to do kind of a presentation discussion kind of thing this morning about cybersecurity and the work that they're doing. And we can look at some ways to be able to participate, to collaborate with them. So with that said, I want to jump into first. So Ryan Murray, are you on a short leash? Do we need to get you first on the agenda?
I am free until 8:30, so I've got a little bit of time if you want to do some prefacing.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm going to put Ken on first because I thought you might actually be interested in what he's doing. So with that, thanks to Cindy and the work that she's done down here in Tucson and the event she helped to coordinate here in Pima County recently, that she had two people who talked about cybersecurity. One is Ken Charvos, who you're going to hear from this morning. And he's doing some really interesting stuff that I think will be very useful. And Mala, this one reason I was trying to connect with you is that we want to look at particularly some of the work he's doing with libraries and so forth. And so with that, Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you. He's a consultant with the Oasis Connections Adult Technology Program. And so, Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing and let you go ahead and share and introduce more about yourself and the work that you're doing.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. And now you should see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. As Steve said, I'm a consultant with the Oasis Institute. I'm actually here in Tucson. Their national headquarters is in St. Louis. We used to have a senior outreach facility here, but it was closed, unfortunately. My job has been to write training curriculum for technology for new users. And I've seen this space really change in the past 10 years. We used to have classes full of people wanting to take basic computer courses, and now it's more iPads and iPhones and different things like that. But my focus over the past couple of years has really been to move toward a lot of cybersecurity training. And so my job here today, I want to basically, in the few minutes that I have, convince you that we're connecting vulnerable users to the most prolific criminal fraud platform in history, and that it's really our obligation to give them the skills that they need to protect themselves. We know they're going to be targeted incessantly, just like we are, with these constant bombardments of text messages, email messages, and phone calls. We've seen a huge jump in cyber fraud, cyber crime over the past couple of years. Romance scams practically tripled from 2020 to 2021. A lot of this was driven by the pandemic. People were home alone and more connected virtually, digitally. But we also saw that social media became a real primary vector for everything from cyber coins to romance scams. So when we're connecting people to these different platforms, when we're connecting people to email, when we're telling them how to get online, surf the internet, we also have to provide them the concurrent skills with which to understand how they're at risk. What we've seen from research is really two things. One is that the broad array of things that we do on the internet all overlap with security skills. And the second thing is that the more skills that someone has, research shows that they're safer with the more skills that they learn. Their choices are better. Their actions become more self-protective. So our normal schemas for dealing with things don't really translate well into the digital world. Things that we would normally, and our populations particularly are vulnerable. We have a lot of times non-English speaking. We're dealing with immigrant populations. We're dealing with low skill populations. We're dealing with vulnerable populations that are victimized anyway. We don't want to provide another avenue for their victimization. So let me jump out of this. We have a pretty comprehensive cybercrime training program that is free, available online on the Oasis Institute site. We're also developing another one that will allow people to obtain a certificate, like a caregiver certificate or just a certificate for having shown skills in this area. This one, I'm going to go through this briefly to just show you some of the skill sets that we think that new users need to be introduced to, that they need to develop these skills. First of all, they need to understand that they are at risk, because when, for instance, this is the Google map of my travels for a couple of years. It's kind of old, but they need to understand how they're tracked. Everything that they do, their location, their activities is tracked. How their data from the government to any accounts that they have is all vulnerable, that their passwords, their personal data, things that would allow someone to steal their identity, is online and perhaps available. And in this particular course, they can take a look at a lot of the different vectors that cyber criminals may use to find information about them. The second thing that I think is incredibly important for new users to understand is social engineering. Social engineering is a part of every fraud. It's the manipulation, deception that people use, that scammers use to create a sense of fear or of urgency, something that they have to do right away in order to get past the normal things, the normal reluctance or the normal decision-making that we would use to protect ourselves. We need to teach people how to understand URLs, how a single letter. So Chase Bank is the correct. Online banking at Chase Bank is incorrect. Chase with 2 S's is incorrect. Chase.biz is incorrect. We need to, when we teach people to surf, to get on the internet, to create accounts, they need to learn how to use links or view links, evaluate links in order to avoid, I'm not sure which one this is here, in order to avoid being misdirected into a bad website. So this particular platform that we have here has a lot of different examples, and that is a very important way to begin to teach people to get a feel for and to develop the skill of recognizing what a true URL is versus a fake URL. Users need to know what a safe or secure connection is, the HTTPS connection. They need to be taught that, and we'll get into this a little bit with the public Wi-Fi, that their data, that their transmission, their activity on the internet is not protected if they don't have the HTTPS connection with the padlock. Romance scams. It's interesting with romance scams, everybody is targeted with romance scams, but people who are over 70 actually lose the most money by far. So it's something that affects everybody, but financially, it's older people who suffer the most with romance scams. Phishing scams, anytime we get something that pretends to be from the IRS, from the government, from Netflix, I'm sure that you get just as many of them as I do every day with text messages and phone calls. that my account's being locked. There's fraudulent activity. These are all phishing attempts, and this is one of the main vectors. Using social engineering and phishing is the two primary vectors of beginning to victimize someone. When we teach people to use email, we need to teach them how to evaluate who is actually sending them emails. They're going to get fake emails. So how do they evaluate that? How do they avoid, how do we teach them to avoid clicking links and going to malware sites or getting involved with a scammer? Malware and viruses, new users need to be aware of the importance of updates to keep their software and their devices safe. They need to be aware of, they should not turn off their firewall. They should pay attention to warning signs that they're given, warnings that come up within their browsers or within their antivirus. So, and of course, one of the main things, I clicked on the wrong one here, is passwords. Something that we all hate, long, unique passwords, especially for our email, because if our email is hacked, it leads people to be a fraudster, to be able to reset everything else that you have. So teaching new users how to create, use, and manage passwords is an absolutely critical skill that we need to focus on. Two-factor authentication. Google did a test at one point and found that two-factor authentication stopped breaches 100%. It's just almost impossible when you combine something that you know, your password, with something that you have in your possession. Even if I give my password out, you can't get into my accounts because you don't have possession of my authentication device. This is a thing of complete mystery to new users, and we need to make this easy for them to understand. Need to give them the guidance to walk through and protect themselves from between Yahoo, the government breaches, Adobe, all of the breaches, billions and billions of records are available online on the dark internet. You can find out something about almost anyone. I'm willing to bet that every one of us has records that have been breached, that have been leaked to the internet, and you can download billions of them for free or for pennies. So all of these records already exist, and those passwords, if those passwords were affected, they may already be in the clear. So we don't have any control over how a company stores our passwords or stores our data. And sometimes these breaches were just found because someone just misconfigured a database and it was just completely open. Other times breaches occur because someone responded in the company to a phishing attempt and gave passwords and information that allowed a scammer to get into the database. The point is that over the past 15 years, we've just seen billions and billions of records exposed from literally every company, and including the government and government records. So our records are out there, we're all at risk. And this is one of the important things that we can do. Two-factor authentication is one of the most important things that we can do to protect ourselves and to protect new users especially. We need to teach them about Wi-Fi safety, especially when they are in public, they're on public computers, they're using public Wi-Fi. They need to understand that those, even if they're using a password, that is not a private connection. And if they're using public computers, they need to learn how to use anonymous browsers and make sure that they don't leave information behind that the next user can just get onto that computer and learn something that they about their activities, or learn something about them, or capture information that they may have put into a form if they're not using an anonymous browser. So that's kind of a really quick and dirty way of getting through what my main point being that we have the obligation, as we're giving people devices and internet access, we're putting them into a position of risk, and they're already a vulnerable population that would tend to be victimized. So my whole thing has been in this digital access thing has been the training aspect of it. And my hope is that we will focus not just on teaching email, but on teaching how to be safe when we're using email, not just on using social media to connect with people or to find a job, but how to be safe on social media when we give them the device and we connect them. So those are my main points. This is a completely free and open website to use. And like I said, we're developing another one that will have more testing, more feedback, more interactive applications, and a certification if they want. So that's my thing today is we have the obligation to teach people to be safe when we give them a device and we put them on this huge criminal platform we call the internet.
Thanks, Ken. Good job. So before I forget, so when I met Ken, that I also met Ken Zambos, who some of you know is with the Pima County Public Library, and he's doing amazing stuff too. Unfortunately, he wasn't available today. But, you know, as we talk about wanting to do something in the cybersecurity arena, that these are a couple of things that we might want to look at, and I'll talk some more about that, but the Pima Public Library in just a little bit. And Michelle, I don't know if you're online and want to say anything about that. We'll have Ken Zambos on here at a future meeting. Michelle, are you here today? Doesn't look like it. Okay, Mala, did you want to say something? No.
No, I just wanted to let you know that Michelle is not there, and Ken probably at one of the future meetings could present on our telemedicine pilot project, because I think he's just finished the report for IMLS, the funding body. So maybe at a future meeting you could get Ken to give us an update.
So part of the conversation I had both with Ken and Ken is that, so with Ken Zambos in particular, they're doing some really great stuff in the cybersecurity space. And so it's a place, it may be a place for us to start, and how we might be able to move in some other directions and being able to expand some of what they're doing. But any other questions or comments for Ken before we move on? Going once, going twice. If not, Ken, thank you very much for being here today. And I hope
Steve,
that,
sorry, I was on mute.
oh, so, go ahead,
This is
Mauricio.
Mauricio. I was just wondering, Ken, do you guys have different levels of trainings? Because this sounds very sophisticated internet user type of information, but we're also dealing with people who are barely learning how to turn on a device. So are there different levels of teaching cybersecurity to a brand new user?
Well, our programs tend to be pretty comprehensive. I would suggest that that any organization that's teaching something, utilize the pieces and parts that are applicable to that particular thing. So if you're teaching someone how to use email, in addition to teaching them how to reply and reply all, teach them that, basically give them a part of the course that explains to them they're going to get scam emails, and it's going to be a phishing attempt, and it's going to be social engineering, and here's how you determine who really sent the email if it's not irs.gov, then it's fake. And, you know, basically take the pieces and parts that they need. You know, what the research is showing us is that the more comprehensive that we can be with the skill set, the safer that they'll be, the better their decision making. So I agree, this is pretty comprehensive and it gets pretty in depth. But you can certainly take pieces and parts of it that apply to whatever it is you're talking about at that time, or the skill set that you're teaching.
Thank you.
So related to your question, I think, Mauricio, is part of the overall discussion we're having about digital inclusion and having digital navigators and so forth. So again, I don't know, we have to have discussion about how we're going to proceed, but one of the places for us to start is, like I said, we're going to hear from Ken Zambos in the future about, you know, libraries and what libraries can do, and looking at where do we have other digital navigators, so to speak, and how can they help with addressing cybersecurity while they're also getting people connected. So it's a huge issue, it's a big issue, and the question is, where do we start? This just may be one of those steps in the process. John Kelly, you had a comment. You want to just talk about that quickly?
Oh, I know that getting devices in the hands of people that don't have them is hugely important, but the challenge is that sometimes there'll be obsolete operating systems and the devices are beyond the support level. I know places like Strut are very cautious about that, but I think we have to be cautious about giving new users equipment that is fundamentally insecure without regard to their skill level. And that's really unfair. The other part of it is, and we talked about this in the report we did, and the Department of Education did the report on this, as we're giving all these students home connectivity. These kinds of lessons have to be part of the curriculum that goes home with the device. The device has to be loaded up with a password manager, for example, because password managers make it a lot easier to maintain secure passwords. I can't even get people in my own office to adopt password managers because they're used to doing things a certain way. But if we can get people who are new users to do it the right way from the start, it's going to be a lot easier than changing people's behavior once they've established certain patterns. So I just think everything you said is right on point. The multi-factor authentication is probably the #1 feature, but there are other aspects of that, because then people are getting calls and saying, "Hey, you just got a code. Can you give me the code?" And obviously they should never do that. So, but that's not obvious to people. So what is obvious to many of us is not obvious to many. And so I just endorse everything that was just said.
And Ryan Murray, you want to just share what you just put in the chat?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off of John's comment that, you know, stuff becomes obsolete almost immediately, right? The software that we're running is complicated, complex, and constantly being updated by the vendors that create it. So how do we teach users to make sure that you maintain and keep those things updated in a timely way, or have some way to automatically update them so it takes the user out of the equation? Because if you're not giving the care and feeding to this technology, it's just as insecure as if you were to give it to them badly in the first place, right?
Amen.
Any other questions or comments before Michelle? I saw that you're online. Did you want to say anything quickly about what the Pima County Library is doing and what Ken's doing?
Pima County Library is always doing something related to computer classes, digital literacy, both now more in person, but we also have an online platform that we're using as part of the Public Library Association, Digital Learn. But we also work with Oasis, what Ken Charbo here is talking about. So we have a lot of things, and if you were to search computer classes or computer training in Tucson, the public library will inevitably pick up. We will be having classes running from October, I think through February, and Ken Zambos will talk about this, that are part of that project with the Public Library Association and Digital Learn. And cybersecurity is one of the classes that will be taught, and it will be in English and in Spanish. So I believe he is getting those up on our events calendar here in the next week. And so that information will be there, and I'll make sure and share that with you.
Great, thanks, Michelle. So, I mean, part of the discussion is again, a starting place is, can we do something with the libraries around the state and or some of the many organizations who are here today? And I don't want to take too much more time on this today, because I do want to make sure we give Ryan some time to talk about some funding and some issues on how that funding may be included. So any other questions or comments before we move on? If not, I want to turn it over to Ryan Murray. Many of you know that Ryan did a presentation to us previously. He's with Arizona Homeland Security, and there's some federal funding that's going to be coming down associated with IIJA. And so I contacted him and said, hey, so how can we take advantage of that? And so he's going to explain that funding, what can and can't be done, and possibly some of the discussion we talked about some options. So with that, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you need to share?
I should be good. I was going to maybe share one slide just as a reference back to my previous presentation, but I can just kind of wing it if.
Well,
if
you're welcome to share it if that'll be helpful. Go ahead, because I'm not sharing now.
All right, sounds good. I'll just start it out. I think I know most everyone on the call, but just as a quick introduction, my name is Ryan Murray. I'm the Deputy Director for the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and the Deputy State CISO, so Chief Information Security Officer, running our enterprise cybersecurity team for the state. I talked last time a little bit about the cyber readiness program that we're running here for the state of Arizona, trying to provide cybersecurity tools to all of our local government entities in the same way that we are providing these to our state agencies. So that's what that is. We're providing 5 specific tool coverage areas: security awareness training and anti-phishing, advanced endpoint protection, EDR solution, multi-factor authentication and identity and access management, web application firewalling, and converged, what the vendor calls converged endpoint management. So this is managing all of your endpoint devices, servers, workstations, laptops, all that stuff, which includes patching, asset inventory, performance monitoring, all that other fun stuff, software inventory, all that good stuff, that anything that you would like to do on an endpoint workstation, server, or laptop, all of those devices. So where does that tie into the infrastructure bill? So the short version is, and I'll just stop sharing. If anyone's interested in seeing those slides, feel free to hit me up and I'll send you a copy. But the short version is the infrastructure bill has some interesting strings attached to it. Essentially, the states are the only entities that can apply for this money for the state and local cybersecurity grant program, which is part of the infrastructure bill. And how we do that is the state has to put together a statewide cybersecurity planning committee made up of local government entities, school districts, tribal nations, public health organizations, and a few others, which is something that we're in the process of doing now. And as part of that planning committee, we have to put together a comprehensive statewide plan that has to be reviewed and approved by that committee and then submitted to DHS for their approval prior to awarding of these funds. And I know a lot of people have seen the giant number that everyone is throwing around, especially the vendors, saying that the federal government is giving you $1 billion to do cybersecurity in your state, which is a bit disingenuous in that it is $1 billion across 56 states and territories across 5 years of funding. So when that actually gets down to the amount of dollars that we're getting here in the state of Arizona, it's significantly less than that. So this year, for federal fiscal year 22, the state will be receiving about $3 million, which, obviously trying to do something across the entire state for $3 million is pretty insignificant, but we're going to do our best with it. And this kind of gets into the meat of the discussion. What we're currently planning on doing, and this is something, as I mentioned, still needs to be reviewed and approved by our cybersecurity planning committee, is essentially augmenting the program that we're already running. So we're providing these 5 tools and capabilities for all of our local government entities. But obviously we don't have infinite money. We don't have infinite licenses. We don't have the support structure necessarily to basically cover the entire state. So we're pretty darn close. We were given approximately $10 million from the governor's office this year to ramp this program up. And we've already spent all that money. So in the coming years, we're looking to see additional funds added to that. And that $10 million is ongoing state general fund dollars appropriated to our department to continue to support this program. But obviously that money runs out fast when we start talking at the scale of the entire state. Another piece that we've really struggled with, and I see Manny on the call, and we've talked to a few other of the school districts, is covering students and student devices, right? So when we start looking at the scale of students in the K through 12s, things just get crazy quick, right? There's a lot of students, there's a lot of student devices. The other piece that we're really missing this year is our community colleges. We know they're struggling just as much as our K-12s, but again, when you start looking at the scale of community colleges, it gets out of hand pretty quick. So all of that being said, we're working on putting this plan together. We've got, I want to say about 75% of our planning committee put together, and our draft committee charter is written. So we're soliciting feedback from the local communities to see if anyone else would be interested in joining in our planning committee. We're going to take that core group that already exists, that's been doing governance for this existing program, and have them select out of a group of applicants, those that we think would best cover some of our gaps that currently aren't covered as part of that planning group. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll finalize that planning committee and then start working on defining what the objectives we're going to try to meet as part of that overall statewide cybersecurity plan. The tricky piece here is this application and the plan have to be completed and submitted to the feds by November 15th, which is going to be here very, very quickly. So all of that being said, we're not really looking at accepting applications from every single subrecipient across the state, just because we don't really have time to do that. So what we're going to do is, as mentioned, sort of augment the program that we're already running, trying to provide additional services, additional licenses, and try to cover some more of those entities that we haven't been able to cover in the past. So with that, I'll just kind of throw it out there and take any questions and ask if anyone has any feedback or thoughts.
So Ryan, per our conversation, excuse me, just a second here. So per our conversation, just a minute here. Let me get this. There we go. So per our conversation, a couple of things. One was, and I think you sort of touched on it, is that there's not money available for people to apply for grants out of that funding.
Correct. Yeah,
But
the short version is the state applies for the funding, and then as part of that planning committee, we will award services or funding, but it's going to be services. So DHS is pushing heavily for states to coordinate capabilities and services across their local government entities and not just do pass-through dollars. Because if we were to do that, that $3 million disappears really quickly. If we start doing 10,000 here and 50,000 here and 100,000 here, it's going to be very difficult for all those local entities to do anything significant with those funds. So what we're doing is essentially utilizing the buying power and economies of scale at the state to buy high-powered tools to be able to provide those capabilities and services out to our locals.
So part of that discussion, Ryan, was that the state could provide services to local entities who are now buying cybersecurity, and then they could repurpose that money so that you can't give them a grant, but you could provide them services, and then they could use the money that they're now spending for cybersecurity for other things or additional cybersecurity.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys are buying these tools that we are already purchasing at the state level, we're encouraging our locals to reach out to us and get them for free from us, so they can either reinvest those dollars in additional staff, additional resources to help manage those products, because we know everyone is understaffed right now. Or if there are additional gaps that you're maybe not able to meet right now, projects that you haven't been able to fund, let us take some of that burden off of you for those things you're already paying for, so you can reinvest those dollars into additional projects.
Okay. And so just again, Ryan, just to reinforce, who can and cannot take advantage of the services provided through your department?
Yeah, so the short version right now is the federal government is defining this as local governments, which obviously has some nebulous definitions depending on who you're talking to and where you're going. But we're focusing specifically on cities, counties, well, cities and towns and all municipalities, counties, K through 12 school districts, and our tribal nations. There is some additional flexibility in there for some of the special districts across the state. So like our transportation authorities have asked if they can participate, and we're seeing how do we get them included, as well as some of the special health districts across the state.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ryan before we move on?
Brian, this is Mala from the State
Hey, Mala.
Library. I
Mhm.
just wanted to be sure that libraries were included in that as well, and we can apply to you to get that, because we loan out
Absolutely.
devices as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So from my perspective, I consider the libraries to be part of the county entities. So as long as they are supported county libraries, I'm good with it. And then you guys, as the state library, since you are a state agency, you are already eligible to take advantage of these products.
And we have several flavors of libraries. There are independent libraries, tribal libraries,
Sure.
community libraries, all of those. And we can discuss offline about how whether you can serve them or we can serve them and how we can do that.
Sounds good. Yeah, happy to. Obviously, there's going to be some nuance to selecting them depending on how they're supported, but happy to talk offline if you've got specific use cases or questions that you're interested in getting them covered.
Thank you, Ryan.
Of course.
And go ahead. Anybody have questions or comments?
I saw a question in chat from Lucy. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead,
yeah.
Lucy.
Hi, Ryan. It's
Hey.
nice to meet you. I'm off camera right now. Just curious, what kind of people are you looking for your advisory task force that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I believe the bill actually states that over 50% of them have to be IT or cybersecurity professionals. So that's sort of where we're targeting right now. But we're looking at the executive and decision maker level of within those types of roles. So like your county CISOs, your county CIOs, city and county IT directors, that kind of stuff. So there are a few others that are maybe a little bit outside of that area of expertise, but the majority of our people have some sort of technical background or are focused on decision making within their departments or agencies from a technical perspective.
Are you looking for
thanks.
people in the public sector only, or does private industry help you?
So we don't have anyone currently in private sector. Almost all of these are going to be public sector since that's where the funds are going. We are soliciting feedback for some of our private sector organizations that might be able to provide some guidance or thoughts on how they think that we should best utilize this within the public sector. But the council itself or the committee itself will all be made up of public sector entities.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Ryan? Going once, going twice?
Manny here, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead, Manny.
Hey, Ryan, good morning.
Manny, good morning.
Thank you again for this information. And I just want to make a comment that from the Sahuarita School District standpoint, these two tools that we just received through this grant, it's great. I mean, it helps a lot and it saves us the time and all the hiccups about the procurement process, which is great. And it's only a matter of time for us, because as you mentioned, that everybody is, needing workforce right now, and we're trying to implement these great tools, and we're going to make that happen within the next month. So thank you. I just want to make that comment.
That's awesome, Manny, and I love to hear it. And something else that I just kind of want to touch on that we spoke about last time is, since we're all going to be using the same tools, right? We're pushing these out across all of our school districts, all of our cities and counties. There's that giant help network. So if you do run into a problem, if you've got one guy or girl that's working on supporting these services within your school district and they need help, they can reach out to anyone across the state to say, hey, I'm having this problem. Has anyone else run into this? So this is a purposeful thing that we're trying to essentially crowdsource the heck out of the support across the entire state. Our state agencies are using this, our teams are using these tools, our school districts are using them, all of our cities and counties are using them. So it's definitely an awesome thing to see when people can reach out for help and get it where they need it.
Totally agree, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Manny.
Okay, Sharika, you have your hand up.
Yes, so my question or comment is in regards to the committee, because you stated the level of positions that you are all looking for, which fortunate, unfortunate, however you want to look at it, is mostly going to be male, white male, older. So how do you diversify, or how do you get that different perspective on how to deliver this? Because we, as people of color, women in tech, we're not in those positions.
Yeah.
And what you just said, you're looking for higher level positions, which
I'll-
sometimes those higher level positions are disconnected from actually what's happening inside their facilities because they're just trying to run it. Just
Yeah,
a
you're
thought.
absolutely right. And I will say that we are taking a look at this purposefully. So our program manager that is running this program for the state of Arizona is an Asian woman. One of our higher level committee members, the deputy CISO for Maricopa County, is an Indian woman. We've got multiple other people from diverse backgrounds, from historically underrepresented demographics. We're purposely trying to focus on how do we get the most diversity of thought across our planning committee. So it's absolutely something top of mind and something that we're paying attention to. If anyone has any additional thoughts on how we could do better, because as you mentioned, just looking at the pictures across here, I think we're a pretty diverse group, but we could always do better, right?
Great. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Sharika. Appreciate you calling it out.
No problem, because I just think sometimes, diversity of level of impact is needed in these conversations, because the boots on the ground tech knows a lot more about how things are happening versus someone sitting in an office, like sitting in meetings all day. So sometimes diversifying from that way is going to bring a different perspective. Because I just think about when I first started in the city of Phoenix, and how all of at 25 years old, anything I said was rejected just because I was 25 years old. But now that I'm older, people want to listen to me. And it's like at 25, I knew what I was talking about, but because of my age, the perception was I didn't know what I was talking about. So sometimes younger people are more creative with it too.
100%. And I would just say, we're trying to do as much of that as we possibly can, right? That diversity of thought, that diversity of opinion and capabilities and background only helps us to do better, especially considering how diverse our entire state is. We don't want to just have people that look like me trying to plan and put together the direction for what we're doing across the entire state. So I think it's a really good call out.
Okay, let's move on. Any other quick questions or comments for Ryan before we move on? Okay, if not, thank you, Ryan. Thank you,
Sure.
Ken.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Today.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet. So, moving on, let me get back to share my screen. Okay, so moving on quickly. Let's see, what else do I need to add? Okay, so just a couple of quick updates. Cindy, we have a digital inclusion network practitioners meeting this week, right? 20th?
Yes, we do. Noon on October 20th. That's this Thursday. And if anybody's interested in attending that, I can put my email in the chat and you can let me know.
Okay. Mala, you want to do a quick recap of the Shelby conference you just attended?
Sure, I will. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to do that. This was the 10th Shelby conference in Washington, D.C. It was also the 25th year of E-Rate, and hence the celebrations. We had a lot of celebrities. Former FCC Commissioner Rochelle Chong and Manon Clyburn were there. Lyle Nishita, the FCC Director for Outreach, was there. We had staff from Jessica Rosenwasser's office, and Gigi Sohn, who has still not, who's awaiting confirmation as the 5th commissioner. She was there as well. Crosby Kempner, who's the director of IMLS, was there.
We're losing you, Mala.
Pardon? Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. That's the reason I turned off the video, because my internet is iffy. Here. So Angela Seafor was there, the NTIA administration, Brookings Institute, Pew Charitable Institute, a lot of people who were there to celebrate the 25th anniversary of E-rate. The general theme of the workshop and the sessions, surprisingly, was almost what we have always been discussing in the last few months. The keynote address, during the keynote address, IMLS Director Crosby Kempner said that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, the funding that is coming down to close the digital divide. The $42.5 billion BEAD money, middle mile money, capital funds project, the government commitment to bring broadband to all corners of the US. It's to be applauded, and it's historic. And it's as historic as building the railroad or getting water and electricity to every corner of the United States. So he emphasized how it was important for all stakeholders to have a seat at the table, which is what we're doing here. And some of them were very impressed that we meet weekly at 7:30 in the morning, thanks to you, Steve, on Monday morning. And that we have consistently been meeting for well over almost 2 years now. And they spoke about the strengths of partnership and collaboration. Also, Lyle Nishita spoke about the outreach and marketing and getting the buy-in of the local community by making that, personalizing that outreach through the local libraries or through the local churches. Just use generic, but personalize it by putting the local organization's logo at the bottom to know that they are participating. And our outreach especially for our Connect ACP has been outstanding and a great example, because we are now at 315,000 plus households that have been connected, moved up in ranking to 12th now. And the other states that have got more ACP fund households connected are mainly because they are huger and they have larger population density. But again, kudos to the outreach that has been happening through AZBN. NTIA also, we had the Office of the Minority Broadband Initiative, who spoke about the historically funding the minority serving institutions to deploy broadband. He spoke about the digital navigators and the training for the digital navigators. Several sessions spoke about digital navigation and how important that was, of selecting the navigators, training the navigators, having them be knowledgeable, but also selecting people who have patience, who are willing to listen, willing to learn, helping empathize with those who connect with you. Several of them who are learning to use websites for the first time. And when we say use this browser or that, they don't even realize what that browser is or where to look for .biz or .com or .gov. So we've got to get down to that level of training for digital skills. They were talking about managing the navigators and making sure that the navigators have the right training, they have the right back-end support, the ticketing, the knowledge base, and as well as paying to keep the best navigators on board and not letting them go because we can't afford them. We had sessions on tribal broadband community-centric priorities and best practices. They spoke about understanding the nuances in the tribal community, planning your approach, looking at their core values, making sure that the business case that we are making includes their priorities and not impose what we think are our priorities, healthcare, homework help, entertainment, because in many of these places, libraries, for example, block Netflix. They don't allow their devices to connect to Netflix or Facebooks because they are all bandwidth intensive. But that could be the priority or the one that helps the tribal communities to adopt broadband. They're virtual attending council meetings because they're unable to travel as much to attend the council meetings. That could be the draw. Make this sustainable is another suggestion, because many of these tribal communities do not have property tax base that we have in the city and municipal areas. Their public libraries are not open or staffed. They're mainly staffed by volunteers, and they may not resemble the public libraries as we know them. They may not be books. They may only have computers. So those are things to pay attention to. And the public-private partnerships, when you give them a Chromebook, show them not only how to use the Chromebook, but how to be safe on the Chromebook, just as we spoke today about it. And help them maintain their sovereignty, by not imposing, by making sure that they still have connectivity, even though they are marginalized, even though they are just one household in miles, and give allowance for all of that. They also spoke about unique challenges and challenges that everyone has been having with the deployment of broadband. No mapping data, we've already spoken about these. Hence, many of the households that are eligible are rendered ineligible because they're not on the map. They show that they are already connected. Funding for mapping. FCC is also shortly releasing their map fabric, but at the same time, states have an opportunity to challenge anything that the FCC has put up. But in order to challenge, we should have the data ourselves, and we should be on top of it so that we can challenge the FCC's mapping data. And a few other things that they mentioned about was, the poles connecting to the poles that need a lot of maintenance. That could be a public safety issue. The integrity of these poles are questionable. The regulatory issues, the right-of-way issues, all of those are not only are they issues in tribal land, but they are issues elsewhere because the broadband goes through the tribal land to connect to other communities. They spoke about tracking the impact for applicants, monitoring compliance, making sure that they're getting what they paid for, making sure that the contracts and procurements are above board, and making sure that once they get the broadband, their digital skill building is maintained and continually being attended to. And then lastly, we spoke about exploring technologies of the future, wireless technologies, LEO, Starlink, satellite technologies that can be beamed to connect all of rural America, and the problems associated with it because they are not regulated, they're expensive. Some of our libraries have piloted them, and just 100 Mbps costs about $500 a month, and $6,000 in a year is difficult for any library to come up with for just 100 Mbps connection. So there were discussions about private LTE, leveraging the CBRS spectrum, and leveraging it not only for single homes, but multiple family dwellings as well. So I know I went through this pretty fast, but it was 3 days of session, so there was a lot to digest and a lot to pass on.
Okay, thanks, Mala. Appreciate it. Let's move on because we're running out of time pretty quickly here. So a couple of quick things. Carla, are you still online?
I am, I'm here.
You want to just tell people quickly about the event coming up, is it Wednesday?
Yes, absolutely. If you have not yet registered for the 10th Annual Tech and Business Expo, I strongly encourage that you do so. It's going to be a fantastic event showcasing Southern Arizona's technology and innovators. We have some fantastic presentations talking about artificial intelligence, James Webb Telescope, and very much of what we talked about today, a little bit of cybersecurity. The event is this Wednesday at the Tucson Convention Center. The doors open up at 12 o'clock and our program presentations will begin at 1 o'clock. We have just about 300 people registered for the event. The booths have been sold out, so you should expect to see a lot of Southern Arizona technology companies joining us and showcasing, like I said, their products and services. I will put the link on the chat right now so that if you have not yet registered, that you do so. I know, Steve, I know you will be there.
Yep.
If you all have questions or comments, please make sure that you get in touch with me. I'll put my contact information as soon as I'm finished talking. But it is going to be a fantastic event, and you will find out information about the rest of the year for the Arizona Technology Council. We do have our Governor's Celebration of Innovation coming up next month, which is also going to be fantastic. We have lots of people from Southern Arizona being recognized and nominated, and we actually have announced some award winners already. Traditionally speaking, at the Governor's Celebration of Innovation, we have about, Southern Arizona usually brings home about a little bit over 50% of the awards. Find out more information about that. I'll put that link on the website as well. But for sure, please join us this Wednesday. You don't want to miss out on this fantastic event.
And Carla, you also have a cybersecurity event coming up, is that correct?
We do. I'll put some more information about that on the website. And I mentioned also that one of our members with the Arizona Technology Council, AZ Cyber Initiative, which is a nonprofit organization that traditionally focuses on providing boot camps and cybersecurity training to high school students in the Santa Cruz, Pima, and Maricopa counties, is now expanding their reach and is going to do an adult boot camp for pretty much anybody that's interested. And for some of those high school students and some of the adults, there will be a $250 stipend given to anybody that participates on those. But I will have Manny join us probably the next meeting to provide a little bit more information about that, who qualifies and how to apply and all that good stuff.
Great, thanks, Carla, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Cindy, do you want to do a quick recap of the event you just did in Pima County?
Wow. Sure. So we held a digital literacy forum on October 4th. We had really good attendance and really good speakers, and it worked out very well. I finally have a recording available that I'm sending out today, and I will get that to this. I'll get that to Steve so he can forward it to everybody on his listserv. And yeah, it went really well. They had in Tucson, they also had a recycling event in at a refurbisher on Stone Avenue, and I'm understanding that that went very well. They also held an open house, and we got to meet some of the people that just came to be there when other people came in to show the community what's going on in the newest Tucson refurbisher. And then we also did an event with AZ Strut. We brought a Chrome Tech Camp to the Boys and Girls Club on 29th and Columbus. And that worked out really well. The kids were wonderful, and everybody really seemed to get a lot out of it. And we also learned a lot out of it, so that we can start bringing more of those sorts of events to Tucson. So it was a really good digital inclusion week overall.
I actually attended the recycling event, got rid of a bunch of my old computers and, and an old printer and other kinds of stuff, and had a chance to also meet Mimi. So it was great.
Perfect. I guess I missed you.
Did you scrub your data, Steve?
Pardon?
Did you scrub your data?
I took all the drives out.
Okay, good man.
Yeah.
They tell me that they do that there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last is Elena and Robert. I don't know if you're still online. Do you want to say anything about the event you guys just had? Help our community connect ACP sign up event.
Yeah, hey Steve, I don't know if you can hear me, right? Can you hear me
Yep.
okay? Yeah, sorry, microphone's acting weird, but yeah, sure. And I think Elena is on, and then Lupe also is on as well. She's from my team and was a big the lead on getting this event going. But yes, it went pretty well. We ended up having about 228 people show up. We ended up giving about 30 computers, or signing over 30 people for ACP for the event. It was great. The way that the event was laid out was we had people coming and they would sign up for ACP, and so they would go in there and go through the process. We had Cox Communications, Common Sense Media, who was our major sponsor. ASU was there as well. And then from there, what we were doing is we had bingo cards. Well, actually, after that, what they would do is they would then go out and AZ Strut would give them computers, the family. And so depending on how many kids they had in the family, that's how many computers that they've got. And then from there, AZ Strut would also give them training on those computers. And then we had a lot of our programs out there so they could see other services that were provided in the community. Sharika was there as well, and had a booth and was playing some games with the kids as well. We had a food truck giving out free food for everybody in the community. And we also had a DJ. So it was a great event. We gave away a lot of prizes. And so we hope to do more in the future. And I don't know if Lupe or Alana, if you guys have anything else that you want to add to that.
Hey, Lupe, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, overall, really good. We had a lot of media presence as well. And just the families and the kids were really excited to get a device, and we had the free food so that could be their highlight of their fall break, because we also aligned it with, we knew it was like fall break, so that could be like their big event for the weekend. Yeah, the DJ stayed to the very end, so they were really good. The kids loved the music, had good vibes, and with the raffles, we gave out free computer, different webcams, headsets, gift cards, and it was really good. So we had a good turnout, and it was at our community center, so allowed a lot of individuals also to see our community center that we have. So in the future, if they need more resources, they could also visit there. And then through CPLC, we definitely have a bunch of a lot of our services address social determinants of health. So they were able to see if they needed to sign up for SNAP, or if they needed help for access. We have all those programs, and all those programs were there in the community. So not only did they receive the resources on ACP, but they also saw the other free resources that we have that they can get through CPLC and other vendors that we had as well.
Right.
Just
Thank you,
two
Lupe.
things. Just
Go
two
ahead,
things I
Elena.
wanted to say, Steve. So one, yes, thank you to CPLC and to AZ Strut, and we had some great partners on this. But two things I wanted to mention. One was, for those folks that didn't have the eligibility documents when they came to the event, because it's very sticky, and each situation is so unique that there were people who came hoping they could get, signed up, and for whatever reason they couldn't. We made sure that they had information and access to the Arizona State University Experience Center that we partnered with for follow-up. And based on the information that we had this morning from our presentation, the goal for Common Sense is to try to follow up with some of these folks, and also make sure that we provide some digital literacy materials to them once they get up and running on their Chromebooks. And I know AZ Strut has that as well. But the real thing that I wanted to bring out were the stories that we heard from the people who we talked to who were getting Chromebooks, who were, we had two families, I think, that each had 5 kids, and AZ Strut graciously gave all of the kids, all 10 kids, Chromebooks so that they could, do their work online and get online and all of that. And so the stories that we were hearing from the moms and the families about what this means to them, that is the reason we're all on this call, I think. And that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So, I think it's great to keep that in mind as well. And we did have some really good stories that we heard. So I just, I wanted to thank everybody for their partnerships and just bring that up as well. So that's it.
So Elena, I just want to say you guys, Common Sense is just doing some really amazing stuff also. And so, really appreciate all the hard work and the stuff that you guys do.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet. So Kelly, Cruci, we're about out of time, but Kelly, do you have anything that you need to talk about or share this morning?
I do not. I'm always happy to say good morning and say that I have no updates, but my name is Kelly. I'm from the Office of Digital Teaching and Learning at the Department of Education. And always happy to be here and see everyone and hear the updates, but nothing from us to share that is of note for the group today.
Hey, thanks, Kelly. And Shelby, I think you were online. Did you
Hey,
have
Steve.
anything from your side?
Can I
I
just
have
interrupt
nothing
you?
to update.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
Thanks,
I wanted
Steve.
to thank Kelly. Kelly came to the event and helped people sign up, which I thought was great. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me. That was a blast. And I learned for the first time how to do the whole ACP process. So it was really good to learn.
Great. Are there any other updates that we need to do real quickly?
Steve,
Go
it's
ahead.
Lucy. I
Lucy.
dropped, I've mentioned to the group the last couple of weeks that we've launched this new broadcast. It's called My Healthy Arizona Fit Friday Community Chat. It's nothing more than an hour of broadcast live Facebook. It is a new YouTube kind of program and channel, but it does give, an opportunity for platform discussion, up and out to the community. So I dropped in a link. Mala, I was unable to go down to the Arivaca Library event and have that kind of follow-up. But that Friday, we did go ahead and do a segment on the importance of the highlight and role of digital inclusion, how it affects health, how it affects education, how it affects, families and what role the libraries play in it. So go ahead and just check that link out if you're curious what that discussion looked like. Feel free to add to all of our 9 subscribers. So maybe we can get up to like 15, 60 and really start to grow this into a mainstream discussion. We really need to start looking at bridging out what the role of digital inclusion is and the impact of overall health in the community into the main sector, right? Outside of this. So that's, I just wanted to mention that. And always on Friday at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we always have that opportunity to have a guest. Like my goal would be to highlight, perhaps Cindy or Chrissy or Alana. I think Alana, Denise Meredith, I believe she's kind of already tagged you on her northern team for Arizona. So I'm looking forward to meeting you, but just an opportunity to bridge and interview and talk about this topic every Friday.
So Lucy, I'm not going to take the time now, but I have been in conversation with a couple of people who are trying to do health-related outreach. And I think that I need to connect you with those folks. So with that, if there's any other comments before we end for today. If not, I think we're done for today. And
Steve?
Yes,
before you go, maybe we could touch base. And since this is my first time at this meeting, there's an amazing amount of things that are going on. But at the University of Arizona, maybe at some point when we discuss some of the resources that we have here at the University of Arizona that could perhaps help with some of the projects that I've heard about this morning. So maybe you and me could have that discussion. Maybe I could talk to the group at some point about where the university could fit into this equation, and maybe because we have a lot of resources. We do a lot of research into specifically into cybersecurity. So something that this group might be interested in hearing about.
absolutely. That's of course why we reached out to you, Paul. Is that we know there's a lot of resources in a lot of our universities, but particularly the institute that you have, it makes some sense, and particularly if you're going to be doing some outreach, that it really makes sense for us to.
And maybe I could be the bridge to sort of maybe guide different people in different directions. I specialize in cybersecurity, but that doesn't mean to say that it's just cybersecurity. I mean, there are lots of resources here. So I'd love to be able to help others make that connection, because we do need to be making more of an effort to be involved in the community and not be seen as just a research institution. Yeah.
Well, and I think that the ideal for us is to actually convene a quote team under the task force to really look at what resources are available out there, how we can collaborate better, and where do we need to go? How do we address this broad range of issues regarding cybersecurity, particularly the uniqueness of the kinds of populations we're working with and trying to get people connected with ACP. So it's something that we're definitely interested in, and that's why I'm glad that we connected with you and Ken and Ryan and all the other folks out there. We know there's lots of others who also can help us.
Yes. But
so with that,
we can chat about it and maybe make a time.
You bet. So we'll try and schedule a time fairly soon.
Yeah.
So with that, any other closing comments? Ryan, thank you for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. Ken, I don't think you're still online, but appreciate your presentation, and I'll try and share that with everybody. So one last thing before I end, for those of you who can stay just 2 more minutes, I'd like to hear your feedback about kind of the format, the way the meeting went today. Do you like this kind of, rather than just doing the updates? Is this useful? What's your thoughts, comments?
I think it was very useful, Steve, because, if we did have updates, we would chime in and give the updates. But, hearing the presentations made a lot of sense, because it's a lot of things that we are working on, but we'd like more details about. So glad you did it this way.
Any other thoughts or comments before we end? Andy Sinclair says he likes the format, like the flexibility. Any other thoughts?
It seems true here. I think it's just awareness, going back to the basics, just enforcing the importance of having security. Especially when it comes down to public Wi-Fi, people aren't aware of that. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's secured. So again, just enforcing that thought process before you click in, you have to make sure that we emphasize the importance of making sure it's secured. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
We're seeing,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're seeing a lot of chatter on the back end about schools being targeted. And obviously we've had a couple of school districts already hit with ransomware out here. So anything to increase that protection would be very huge. Most schools with only 1 or 2 IT people do not have the time or resources to keep up with the level of security that is required at this point to protect most of those assets. So,
Kirk, are you trying to say something there? You're waving. No? Okay.
Is my voice on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You're muted, Kirk.
Oh, Kirk.
Corey, we heard every word beautifully, and I ditto to what Corey said. Awareness all the time. Don't click on this email, please.
We're actually building 4 servers at the office. We're going to leave on standby for some of the schools that we work with, just in case that because we were contacted by a couple of schools that were hit by ransomware, and so the need to bring those schools back up quickly. We've got the hardware here, so we're setting them up that they can be deployed for emergency replacement of schools that are hit. So anyway, just
my 80-year-old aunt still falls for your computer's been, the big, they hit something and up comes a pop-up and you've been infected, you've been this, please call us, this is Microsoft, this is Joe Biden's office, and I'm still, don't click, just turn off the computer. When you see that, close the window and call me.
We have found that we in some of our areas, we have to actually protect the people from themselves because they don't, because of that problem. So we've got filtering in some areas. We're still working on expanding it, but it is a big problem. There's no question.
So Rory, not to get into a discussion about it today, but in looking at an overall strategy, that for me, one of the questions is, what are the ISPs doing in terms of cybersecurity and helping to protect as we're signing up all these people? And again, we don't have time today to get into that, but to me, that's one of the part of the overall strategy we have to be looking at is what role do the ISPs play in all this?
None whatsoever. I'll just tell you this, the best combination we've seen right now is Symantec's antivirus coupled with Malwarebytes and SpyHunter. And that, now we're also using Bitdefender, but it gets a little, that's not a great option for, it's not as good an option for residential. We're dealing with enterprise stuff. But even with Bitdefender, we back it up with Malwarebytes on all, even the client, even our office computers. So.
Hey, Rory, this is Shelby with ADE.
Hi.
How are you? I worked with Mylan. I don't know if you remember me, but I'd be curious in learning more about what you're doing, because I do have a tribal technology or rural and tribal technology roundtable that I'm building. And last week our topic was on cybersecurity, and we did have someone go over their major breach that occurred up there. So I'd be curious because I'm always interested in sharing resources, information with my group.
Yeah, the only customization is you need to know how much infrastructure. Like in our case, we have our own servers, Exchange server and so forth. If you don't have your own servers you're trying to protect, you're just trying to protect desktops, then Malware and Symantec are the two best tools you can have on every machine. Worth every penny. Beyond that, there's obviously a whole bunch of stuff we can talk about at the back end with routers and IP blocking and so forth that we do. It's a lot deeper. If you're protecting servers and stuff, our suggestion is Bitdefender, backed up with Malwarebytes. Those are the simplest tools because whatever you do, you have to scale it to the resources of the IT person.
Right.
And obviously, they're all overworked already. Those tools give them as much hands-off options as possible. They're mostly self-policing beyond the standardized updates that have to be done. But they're enterprise managed applications.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, any other questions or comments? I'm going to stop recording now, and we'll kibitz